right, here we go, Ollie. We jump back in. So thank you to our listeners and viewers who are back with us. And Ollie, I know you have got the a page in front of you, and you got some of the black and white. So we know the minute we see black and white on there, what's happening. But tell us, what have you got in front of you? What are you seeing now?
Well, here we are, the beginning of the mortgage bomb. That's the word for it. Here's a page full of last weekend's Herald, mortgagee sales. It's a disgrace that this is happening. These people should not be sold up.
Now, didn't the bank say this wasn't going to happen this time?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
We all know the banks are liars. We're looking here at the lives of people being destroyed in front of us. Behind each one of these are people. Mortgagee sales aren't floating in the air. There are real people here who probably saved and worked hard, swept floors, worked on building sites or whatever.
And took the risk, jumped into the property market.
Went to the bank, got told all nice things and all the pretty things that get told. They buy the house, they put their equity into it, and now here they are being sold up. Mortgagee tenders or mortgagee sales. It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. The banks should be, they are bloated with profits. The banks should make deals with these people. There are easy ways for people to avoid mortgagee sales, and it's for the banks to help, not to sit there and push them into the...
Do you think we're going to see... Yeah, I've got my opinion from what I see in the market. What's your opinion? Are we going to see more?
Oh, yes. This is just the top of the iceberg. This is just one page of 1 week in Auckland. Go to Trade Me and the other places. You'll see 3 times as many. And under all these will be a writhing mass of people struggling not to get into this position. So we're going to have this mortgage bomb for sure. And the banks are to blame because they talk these people into the mortgages they have, and now they've taken the umbrella away when it's raining.
And have made massive profits off it.
Absolutely. There's so easy ways for people to stay in a house if banks would cooperate. This is a disgrace. Nothing but contempt.
If it was one of your clients in that situation, if it was somebody taking advice off you, using your guidance, your mentorship, what would you be saying to the family now as they're starting to run out of runway with regards to the mortgage?
Well, I'd firstly find out exactly what's going on.
Yep.
And see how far in arrears they are and what the situation is and where they are in the mortgagee sale process. Because it's not, the property has not been sold till the hammer falls down. They can rescue the situation right up to the last minute. Right? So it's not the end, but you've got to act quickly. You shouldn't get to this place. What people who are under pressure should do is go and talk to someone. They've talked to me in the past, and we organise something early on. Now, what the banks can do, and they're too lazy to do because they don't care. I know all about that from my experience. They just don't care. These people are just numbers to them. The person who wrote them off has gone home to his mum, to his wife and his kids and his dog. He doesn't care anymore. What the banks do overseas in many cases, and this is completely hopeless, is to swap debt for equity. Debt for equity swap. The bank becomes part owner. Say the property is worth $1 million and there's a $700,000 mortgage on it. The bank swaps that $700,000 mortgage to become part owners, 70% owner. The people residing in the place look after it, they pay as much as they can, and they both ride together until the market, as we know, always improves. Eventually sells it down the track, mate. Now, I had all that experience with the blue chip mob.
That's interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard that before.
That's right. And many people there swapped debt for equity with the banks. But the banks won't offer it because they just can't be bothered. So these people should not be in this stage. And of course, there's many people under. I would love to help those. And I would help anybody for free if they give me a call and give them what counselling I can over the phone to see if there's something that can be done and not end up in this terrible mess.
Yeah, fantastic. Some great thoughts in there and a great offer. So, people should, if they're starting to experience that earlier rather than later, be in touch. And then, Ollie, I can tell you what we can do from our side is, if I can grab your page. So visually for the people watching us, and there's a pretty big one there, that's not going to be a problem. But while you're have the ability to have your property in colour, so you're not in trouble, deal with the agent. If it doesn't look distressed, we've got a greater chance of getting a better price.
Yeah.
But I think in a lot of cases, there's a bit of deceit goes on, and maybe it's just that somebody's embarrassed about the situation they're in and say to the agent, no, we're fine. I've had that before. And then suddenly the person goes, no, we need this sold in. We can't do a 4-week contract. We need 3. I say 3. Yep, because we can't get the payment out on the 4th week. Wow. Okay, well, if we'd known that a lot earlier, we could have helped. So we can probably both help in there, I think.
If a property has got an agreement on it, but the mortgagee sale is ahead of it, you can apply for an injunction to stop the sale going ahead. It's a very easy thing to do if the lawyers will extract digit. But it's best to swallow your pride if you're really in trouble. You've missed a couple of payments.
Exactly.
The banker sends you the final notice. You just go and get some help somewhere. And it's easy, relatively easy to talk to the bank, although they're hard to talk to, I admit, or come to an arrangement or do a debt equity swap. It's up to you to take action. If nobody knows, and this lawyer doesn't know, your advisor doesn't know, if I don't know, if the bank doesn't even know, well, what are they supposed to do?
How's anybody going to help them?
Don't leave it to the last minute. So this is a scandal in the making. We're going to see much more of this. Much more of this. And those of you out there who are looking at this, if you're in trouble, then give me a call.
Fantastic.
I do what I can. No guarantees, of course. And point you and all confidential, of course.
No, fantastic. Take Olly up on that advice. We don't do a lot of mortgagee sales. It's not our sphere. There is one company that sort of gravitates towards it. But when we have done a mortgagee sale in the past, over 20 years in real estate, you may not be aware, but from the agent side, they have a withdrawal fee. So if it's withdrawn before it sells through the mortgagee, then there is a fee paid. And that reflects that there is a very good chance that if the person engages with somebody, they can come to a new financial arrangement and not have the property sold out from under them. So there's a couple of great ways to get things done. So, okay, that's great.
There's always hope until there isn't. Well, it's not. Yeah, when you're like me, I've had to deal with many people over my career who are up to here. And I've managed to save some of them. Obviously, some just run away, and you can't do anything with them. But don't run away. It can be saved, and you can deal with the banks, despite them being heartless monsters most of the time. You can shame them into helping out, because it's the amount of money owing to the banks under mortgagee sales wouldn't even buy tea and biscuits for a week for a bank. So it's peanuts. So it's easy peasy for them. So you've got to get in early, and you've got to give them a process. And then you've got a chance. Otherwise, if you do nothing, bad things happen.
Then you're in trouble. No, I appreciate it. And you're active out there right now. What else are you seeing out there? Any excitement, any experiences? Talking to my friends in the real estate business, the market has roughly stabilised where it was, and there's some interest from bargain hunters, but there's still a big overhang of unsold properties, especially ones that are expensive or ones that have a little bit of an issue or not sort of in the right place. The properties that are selling along the lines I was telling you last week are those near bus stops. And now the petrol's going up this week. Now think about this, folks. The news.
This is absolutely nuts. The government is parading itself, beating its chest with pride that it's removed prescription fees. Everybody should be dancing in the streets because prescription fees have been removed. Thank you very much for the prescription fees. Now they put the petrol up by 25 cents. So they've given with one hand and they take it with the other. Blessed be the government.
And we're lucky we're not all down at the chemist, but everybody's in a car. I see those poor people in Tauranga, they reckon their traffic's worse than ours.
Well, you look at what's happening in the floods and down Gisborne Way and what have you. This is beyond anybody. I feel so sorry for them. This is not a mortgage sale business. I don't know exactly what happens when people have mortgages and the place is flooded out and destroyed. It would be, I don't know what happens there. They get supposed to be paid out, but the mortgage is piling up. I hope the mortgagee, that's the bank, freezes any interest rates. We don't know. Some horror stories will come out, I'm sure, in due course.
I don't think we've even seen clarity from Auckland. I think the government came out and said there will be some payouts, and then Auckland said, great, who's going to make the payout?
I heard just on the way here, the City Council, the City Council said the government wants the City Council and the government pay 50-50 to pay people out. The City Council says we haven't got the money. So the meat and the sandwiches, the poor beggars, sitting with flooded houses and it needs somebody to go and sort it out.
We're going to sell the airport, sell the port, and to cover the current bills.
See some bloody heads knocked together.
You'd be a good mayor.
I nearly was.
I didn't know that.
No, I'm joking. I was on the city council many years ago.
Oh,
but I was too young and I had other things in my mind. And most of the councillors then would spend most of the time in the side room drinking whiskey. They couldn't wait for the whiskey before and after. They were all shicker. And this was not my scene. And so I was not a whiskey drinker. And the whiskey was provided by the ratepayer, mind you. It was free whiskey. So I was feeling very out of place sitting on a side room.
Do you drink whiskey now?
I have it with Baileys, in Baileys form.
Okay.
Whiskey and cream. Not
okay.
But that's not the point. I would pay for my whiskies, thank you. I don't want free council paid. Anyway, we're off the subject.
All right. Okay. Why don't we jump in? Can I ask about commercial?
No, I'm going to tell you a story first.
Oh, tell me a story and then I'll ask about commercial.
Okay. I want to tell you what happened to me, and I call it the room that never was. The room that never was. There was an apartment for sale in the eastern suburbs, St Heliers actually, and it was a 2-bedroom apartment, and it was advertised at a reasonable price, and I was in the mood, sometimes you're flush and sometimes you're not.
Yep.
So I went and had a look at this apartment, and I got there late, just as they were closing. I got in there, and the agent was there. She was fluttering around with some paperwork there, and I looked around. It was just an apartment, had marvellous views, which I liked. It was a tidy order, not too bad. And the suggested price was within my means. So then I left and thought about it, and I went back to the next open home, and there were people there, and I got there late again, as it happens. But something felt wrong. As I walked around this apartment, I felt sort of something is wrong. Couldn't put my foot in it. Then when the people were leaving, I suddenly realised that the front door opened. It happened to be hinged on the right. When it opened up, it covered up another door. There was another door behind the front door. Nobody saw it. Everybody was looking. So I quietly peeked behind the door. There's another bedroom. A third bedroom with a window. It was a bedroom. Wasn't it? I said, my godfather, this is a 3-bedroom apartment. And if you know anything about real estate, bedrooms are gold. Eh?
Yep.
So I kept the door shut, of course, and I made an offer on a 2-bedroom apartment and bought it. Immediately took the door down, swung it the other way, so it opened the other way to reveal the 3rd bedroom, flussed the place up, kept it for a while, and later sold it.
Wow.
So that was the room that never was. You got to live through this. Look, I can't make these stories up. This happened real. I could take you to the very place right now, and you'll find the door swinging to the left now.
How cool is that? And that'd be in the days before floor plans and digital photos and all the nonsense. The agent didn't even look behind the door.
I don't know what they were thinking. I didn't want to inquire, because if I inquired, I would have let the out of the bag.
You wouldn't say, hey, what's this?
I think they thought it was 2-bedroom. It was sold as a 2-bedroom. I found a 3rd one. There we are. So that's how you improve a property just by changing the hinges. That was a true story. It's a true story.
I've had buyers phone me back after a property and say, how many they're interested. How many bedrooms did it have? In Titirangi, you get everybody in Titirangi at a certain stage did downstairs, added in downstairs. And in Titirangi, for my mates that are still up there, don't cane me on this, but when you go downstairs, 2 things happen. First of all, it goes pitch black in Titirangi, and secondly, it goes damp, even though the dehumidifiers are running. And that's when people lost count of how many bedrooms had been sort of tacked onto a house. But no, you did well. Okay. I'll go shopping with you. I'll check behind the door next time.
I've never seen it before. I've never seen it after. But you just have to live through it, I'm sure. But there we go. When commercial, I'll start from a different angle. How do you resolve problems with a commercial property? This is important because there's no tenancy tribunal.
Okay.
Now, a lease, most leases, 99% of leases, have a clause in there that if people can't agree, you can go to a middleman, whatever they call it, and you can get I've just forgotten the name for the moment, somebody who will act as a mediator
or arbitration.
Arbitration, that's the word I think of. So you can go to arbitration, and what happens is two valuers are called in usually, and they discuss it between themselves and come up with a decision. If they can't decide, it goes to an umpire. And he or she decides. I mean, it's a long-winded thing. But most people never go down that path. If there's a dispute that's, say, under $20,000 or something like that, you can go to the disputes tribunal. And I've been in and out of the disputes tribunal lots of times. I've worn a path through it, either people taking me or me taking people. It's always commercial stuff, of course. So when you go, it's useful. If you're in commercial property, you better learn how the disputes tribunal works.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get used to there, because that's where you get dragged one way or the other. Either you're taking the tenant there, if it's a small sum, or they're taking you. So you go into a room somewhere in the district court in town, right? But you go to there's all these disputes going on in rooms, and there's notices on the wall and so forth. And you get called into this room, which is usually lined with some paneling, and this guy, mediator, comes in, and you sit either side of it, and you argue the dispute one way, and the other guy disputes this way. And the mediator usually says, "I'll leave you alone for a while, and you see if you can sort it out." So you know this is crunch time, and half the time you sort it out between yourselves. And you come back and you tell the mediator you've sorted it out, and then he writes it up on a very legal form, big stamps and what have you. If you can't sort it out, he comes up with a decision, and that's the last thing you want. Because if you're the landlord and the other guy's the tenant, you're in the worst seat possible, because they usually tend to favour the weaker. They tend to be fair and equitable, but I don't know.
But it doesn't feel like that when the landlord's sitting there.
So what I've learned to do, and I don't do it now, of course, is you can feel whether the case is going for you or not. I've had some arbitrators, they just snap and snarl at you and treat you like dogs, like a dog, and you know that you're going down. And it's quite, not always. And a couple of times I've felt so put into a corner that I dispute this ruling. I think you're biased. The dispute, the arbitrator doesn't like that word. So I want it written into the case that I dispute any hearing because I think you're biased. And they usually crumble at that point and want a rehearing. I had to do it because it was seriously biased. And so this is a little trick. You've got to know these tricks. I mean, you're not going to go to jail in these places. It's just an arbitration.
Yep.
And you can have your say. But sometimes it's not as fair as it should be.
And you're arguing your own case in there, no counsel.
No, that's important. You're not allowed to have a lawyer. And I had a case like that. I had an office space in town. There's another story what happened there, how it became vacant. There's a whole fraud behind that, but we'll deal with that another day. This office became vacant, and I rented, advertised, and somebody finally replied. I went down to the office there, and to my horror, the place was pitch black, and the whole building had been covered in sacking and plastic while they were painting exteriors. So no light was coming into this office, black as black. Somebody had opened the window, and the workmen outside on the scaffolding were using the office as their lunchroom and smoker room and sleeping there. The place was a mess. So I did my bun, as you can imagine. So the body corporate people, I took them to the disputes tribunal, see? They disputed it. So I sat there, and this dispute started, and the body corporate lady in charge, she stood up and started spouting all this legalese stuff. I said, this is serious legalese stuff. What's going on here? So when we came to a break, I went and got my computer and looked up her name, and she was a full-time lawyer. So when we went back after the break, I said to the arbitrator, I think Miss over there, is she a lawyer? She asked the question. Yes, she was. Well, you'd have thought somebody fired a gun. The case immediately became mine. I won
Flipped your way.
15 grand I got out of it. I remember that. She was hauled before the Law Society.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
No, she should know. So that was an interesting experience. I really enjoyed it. I went home. I won that one.
That's a silly trick from the other side because the repercussions of being caught.
Silly. That was silly, but there we go. So this is the sort of things you get.
Yep.
You don't get that in residential. You only get this in commercial, you see.
And what about, in your experience, is there a transition that somebody's investing in residential and then they're investing in commercial or in fresh with syndicates? How do people normally come across?
It's usually common for people who are in residential property and they're doing okay, and to sometimes talk to their friends who also want to dabble a bit and maybe form some sort of loose partnership.
Yep.
And then it's quite common for people who are in residential to start looking at commercial property. And they're in for a shock because everything you know about residential out the door
just changed.
Starts all over again.
Yeah.
Right? It's a major. I'm not going to teach you here because it costs money to do that. But everything you know about residential, you forget. But what you're buying in a commercial property, you're buying a business. You have to treat it like buying. It's treated as a business for tax purposes too. You're buying a business. It happens to be a building, but it's a business. And the income from that property, that commercial property, is what drives the value. And the terms of the lease drives the value. And it can destroy the value or increase the value. So the same building can be worth half as much again or half as less, simply being by the lease alone, let alone the position, let alone the structure. So you have to check out the structure, you have to check out the position, you have to check out the lease, the tenant. You've got a shopping list of things you've got to check before you even put pen to paper. This is amazing.
So you can easily get that wrong. On the residential, if you under rent it,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter that much.
If you
much. But on this property, commercial, if the yield you affect the yield, you're in trouble because the tenant's going to be locked in too. Or you're, as the landlord, locked in.
Residential property, quite right. If your property is rented for $800 a week, residential property, and for whatever reason you cut the rent to $400, has no effect on the value of the property at all. Or the other way around. If it's rented for $800 and you turn it to $1,000 a week, no effect on the value at all. It's the same property and it'll be worth the same as it was yesterday. Huh? You do this to a commercial property. I mean, it's a bit more sophisticated. But if you can get the rent sorted or you reduce the rent long term, you destroy the value or increase the value. Okay? So, but this is highly complex, and this is not for some sort of broadcast like this. I've lectured at universities on this subject. I've been to Massey and Auckland University at times and given lectures on how investors look at commercial property. Quite different from what you learn from and you have to take basically an example and then go through the lease and through the valuations. It's a major surgery. You just don't buy it on the fly. You just don't have open homes and make an offer.
See, it's sounding a lot easier now. And the new commercial landlord, if they fly alone, could easily make mistakes and be locked into them.
That's right. It's easy to make mistakes because when you read the lease, which comes with a commercial property, or you create a lease, when you buy a commercial property that's already leased, you're inheriting a lease that somebody else drew up. And this is important. You haven't drawn it up. You have to take the lease as it stands, if there is one. And you have to understand what you're reading. And oftentimes, what's happening in real life is not what's on the lease, because the lease may be 20 years old for all you know. So what was written up 20 years ago, 10 years ago, doesn't apply to what's on the ground now. So the tenant may look at you and say, I didn't know this. I didn't know I was responsible for that, or whatever. And you'll find that the real world is different from the lease. So you have to sort of, why is this happening? Okay? And you'll find that over a period of time, all sorts of handshake deals were done. Letters were exchanged. And the original lease is just a pale shadow of what's happening. It may be better or it may be worse, you don't know. So you want to take all sorts of interesting things boiled up there. And it can have a huge effect on the value one way or the other. I told you last week about the ice cream cones. You've forgotten about that. How the landlord didn't read the lease properly and thought the tenant was moving out. and all you had to do was renew the lease. See, but this is just simple. But most leases are on what is called ADLS forms, which is Auckland District Law Society. 90% of them are, but they don't have to be. They can be on the back of a cigarette packet, anything you like. It can be exchange of emails. So you've got to be careful, and it's a very tough legal question if you get it wrong.
Yep. And the ones outside of the Law Society ones can look similar.
Yeah.
And they've normally been copied at some stage to some degree, haven't they?
Oh, it's worse than that. Many lawyers produce their own, which is sort of carbon copies, if you like, of ADLS lease. And of course, it depends on the tenant. The tenant may have special needs of some sort, so the lease has to be altered to fit in with the tenant. One or the other. So great. So the ADLS lease produced by the Law Society is just a template. You start with that, and it depends what year it was written up, because they vary that template every other year. You've got to read the date. And there's no obligation for you to use the current one. You can go back and use a 20-year-old one. That's what I like the 1986 version, because everything was in favour of the landlord. The Law Society has been tweaking it ever since, making it more favourable for the tenant.
Drawing it back.
But you can change all that.
Well, you see how this sort of loops back into disputes and being back in the courthouse in some wood-panelled room.
Remember, many of the tenants are stronger than you. If you want to take Fletcher construction to court, good luck.
That'd be pretty interesting, wouldn't it? That wouldn't be any fun at all.
No, so be very careful with that, because there's some. I had to take on some tenants. I had a bank once. I owned a bank. I'll tell you the story, and that'll be the end of my story. There was an ANZ bank for sale in Hamilton. Banks sometimes go and sell their own premises. So I thought, I banked with ANZ at the time. It'd be nice to sort of get one back. So I bought this bank, North Hamilton it was, a mid-sized bank, fitted out. 3x3x3 lease. You know what that means? It means they have a 3-year lease and they can renew or walk away. It was under the name of Black Horse Properties. That's how they used their...
Which was the advertising.
Whatever. So I bought it at the beginning of the lease, and they paid the rent, of course, on time, naturally. And the third year came along, and I had the lease reviewed by my valuer, who said it would be 10% more. So I wrote them and said, look, here's a valuation, 10% more. They said, no, we're not paying it. I said, well, there's a valuation that says, they said, we're not paying it. If you force it on us, we're leaving. And there you are. They had you by the short and curlies. Because if they left you, end up with a bank premises, what are you going to do with it? So I had to grit my teeth. Okay. I had to renew it at the old rent. So another 3 years went by. I had it reviewed again by my valuer. It had gone up a fraction more, 15% up. Same story. Went to Black Horse Properties, somebody there, I won't mention who, remember that clearly, said we're not paying it, same story. So we're into now the third turn of 3 years. So this is it. I asked them if they'd renew the lease for a further 9 years. No, we'll tell you at the last day of the last term. So I said, this is a nightmare. They may just tell me they're walking out on the last day. I've got an empty building. So I'm going to sell this. I'm out of here. Now, I bought the building with showing 10% return. But the market then was getting hotter. So I found somebody bought the building showing a 5% return. So it made the thing more valuable. And I tucked into some innocent farmer. As far as I know, though, he wasn't tucked in. It was a bank for a long time after that. Not now. I've been past there. Cock a snook at it. It's gone. But that was an interesting time. So they're bigger than you, see?
And I remember that was always the word on the street. Yeah, what a perfect tenant, the bank, have them in there. But now you look around our areas, the banks are closed. The bank is a foyer with ATMs in it.
Same with petrol stations.
Such a change, isn't it?
Same with petrol stations.
Well, there's more service in a petrol station than there is in the local bank. Man, I even had to drive to one. Anyway, that's the Auckland traffic. So there we go. So we spoke about the mortgagee sales.
I'm hot about
and
I'm hot about that. I tell you what.
And for free, you put your hand up and you said, hey, somebody getting themselves in trouble, you're going to help. Yeah,
I know about this because back in after the 87 crash, I had a bit of bother. No, but I'm not hiding it. I had a bit of bother, and I had a bank. Nothing happened. And there was a threat in the air that I'd have to sell my home after years of sweat. Now, you have to go through this feeling, for years. And when you wake up in the morning, you don't know if there's going to be a knock on the door. It got sorted out. There's a story in itself, and I'll tell you next time one day how I sorted that out. That was fun. That was. I nearly got head up for murder, but I got it sorted.
So your experience is on the table. It's on offer. That will help them. We've spoken about commercial.
Yeah.
And it's very, very clear that getting into it or being in it, you need to get it exactly right. So, and again, I think that's your expertise.
Right.
Yep. People should tap into that. Very well dressed today. I like the suit and tie.
This is my normal everyday dress.
Really? That's you relaxed. You wake up like that?
I sleep in the suit.
Wow.
Yes, I do.
It's very impressive.
I just change my underwear once a week.
Before we get any more detail, we're out of here. Thanks very much.
Thank you. See ya.
See you. Bye.